Welcome back to Mind Your Biz. My name is Seth, and in today's episode, I did speak to Willem here of Botanix Labs. It builds stablecoins on Bitcoin, businesses, games, etc. What does that mean? Well, what follows is a pure and uncut video with Willem himself to explain all of what Botanix Labs is building. It's native to Bitcoin's L1. Keep that in mind as you watch what follows. All right, guys, I'll check in with you at the end.
Be here. Hey, everyone. So I'm Willem. I grew up in Belgium and actually had a bit of a mathematics background, became third in a national championship in mathematics in Belgium. Then ended up doing electrical engineering, researched in cryptography. So actually researched in authenticated encryption. So actually Bitcoin in 2012 in my cryptography classes. So that was my first entrance into like what was possible. And then went working, something completely different. It took me a few years to come fully back, and that also brought me to Saudi Arabia. So I lived 2 years in Saudi.
Okay, so now it begs the question: can you talk much about what you were doing during those years? Is it considered an issue of national security or something if you discuss it? Or
No, I was just working in chemicals.
Okay.
But it was still a very interesting time of my life. Basically, that brought me fully back to Bitcoin in essence, because I was traveling around the Middle East a lot. And so I also went to Lebanon, for example. And I saw hyperinflation starting to happen. I saw people getting their bank accounts seized. And so when you see that, and that really hits you. And there's actually a lot of people in the world, like especially from the West, we often forget how bad it can get. But you only need to get your bank account seized by the government only once to fully see the power of like having control over your own money.
Sure.
And more you actually see those governments already like breaking down and cracking down on the current systems. So yeah, that basically pushed me to like go back to my cryptography roots and think about how I can best use the power or the things that I've learned to good use for the world. And yeah, after Saudi, I applied to the Harvard Business School. So that brought me to Boston. And it's actually there where I formed the thesis for what is now called Botanix. Botanix, that was like 2 years ago, more or less, a little bit longer. And Botanix is a layer 2 EVM on Bitcoin. I was trying to figure out from like a higher level perspective, what makes the most sense in the world of crypto to actually help this space forward. And we have been trying to figure out which infrastructure is the best to scale crypto towards like billions of people in all different types of ways. And so I looked at the whole industry and I saw Bitcoin. And so on the one hand, you have Bitcoin, absolutely pure, decentralized, secure money. And then you had almost no applications on top of it. And so when you look outside of Bitcoin, you have a huge amount of applications. Like a lot of applications have reached product market fit there, have reached a lot of different people and consumers, and have been worth quite a lot of money. And so I was like, okay, how does that make any sense? And so basically what I realized is that a lot of those applications, they are built on virtual machines. And so virtual machines, think about that's where you build your smart contracts. And they actually follow like a different type of rule in essence, like a different first principle. I think if you look at the virtual machines, they're more like your operating systems. And so I think the EVM kind of has won out as virtual machine. And so I saw Bitcoin being absolutely best money ever made, absolutely decentralized and secure, very good store of value.
Right, and then more hardened in the crypto world or blockchain world than the hash rate, right? It's just an absolute wall of security that can never be matched. Yes, right.
Exactly. And then I saw the EVM, and I think actually when you think about it, both Bitcoin and the EVM are the two most leanly effects in the whole of crypto infrastructure. They're the two most established systems. And so I wanted to bring the EVM, which is just software. It's basically a virtual machine. I wanted to bring that to Bitcoin so that suddenly you can actually, with your $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion of Bitcoin today, actually use those applications that have reached product market fit that are built on the EVM. So that's 2 years ago. I went deep back into the cryptography. I was trying to figure out, okay, how do you actually design this? Because building on Bitcoin is extremely hard. I think everybody knows that. It's probably the biggest reason why there's nothing built on Bitcoin. And so when deep into the cryptography, design what's now called spider chains. So Spider Chains is a layer 2 design that's capable on Bitcoin to actually bring that EVM. And then fast forward, now we're here. Getting ready to launch on mainnet soon. Have a lot of different partners lined up. Getting ready to fully open Bitcoin DeFi.
Okay.
That was a very short intro by myself.
Sure.
Crypto background, etc.
Sure. Yeah. No, but thank you also for a little bit of the how it informed your journey into building in the space and why those decisions were made. Some people, would look at it and say, "Hey, that's not, it's an unlikely decision." With Bitcoin maximalists, they can't stand even the EVM. That for some of them, they have strong vocal criticisms against the EVM, and in some cases, it sounds like just it's dogmatic, right? They're not really thinking outside of maybe something they've heard from another Bitcoin maxi once before. But in other cases, they have these really strong criticisms for what they're saying. I think, in essence, is that they don't want to see Bitcoin Core itself be affected by some of the decisions made for EVM because the architectures couldn't be, more different, right, in terms of the UTXO model versus the account model. So it's weird. I hear some of the vocal criticisms and saying we never want EVM anywhere near Bitcoin, but then having it be an L2 functioning as, in something of a secondary role, right? Role where it's simply handing off something to be written into the Bitcoin blockchain, I guess, for notarization purposes or something. I mean, people get interesting ideas about how to architect this. Is kind of where I'll conversation next. Why did you decide to go with this concept of spider chains, and what does that mean in layperson? How can they conceptualize this? Does it have anything to do with sharding or multiple instances of this L2 chain? How does it work for the layperson?
Yes, very good question, because the spider chain is quite unique and there's extremely good reasons for it. So let me start with why something like spider chains and not why not rollup, for example, because that's what we've seen. That's very popular in Ethereum world, and the reasoning is actually very easy. I think Bitcoin needs a decentralized layer 2. And the reason for that is I want DeFi to be there. And if you actually look at the Ethereum roadmap, they basically want DeFi, for example, on the Ethereum layer 1, because you need that to be decentralized. Rollups are typically very centralized. It's a single party that runs the whole chain, but can be very trustless. But you, for example, don't want a rollup by a centralized party to run in a country in the world. Because what if that country decides, oh, we're going to shut it down? What then? How can a global financial system on DeFi actually run if it's not built on a decentralized layer? And so rollups go for centralized but trustless, right? And that's perfect if you want to build it on an Ethereum layer 2. But for Bitcoin, that doesn't have smart contract capability on the base layer, you need a decentralized layer 2 on the second layer, where you have that EVM smart contract capability, where you can build that DeFi layer. And that's why I designed the spider chain. So how does it work? The spider chain is optimized to be decentralized. And I realized that a lot of things in the space are basically multi-sigs. If you drill really deep down into essence, what actually secures this, it comes down to a 3 out of 5 multisig, or an 8 out of 12, or whatever the number is. And so I wanted to actually, if you drill that down, you basically come to the conclusion, okay, we need to find a way to decentralize the multisigs. That's what we've done. We found a way to basically decentralize the multisigs where anyone can participate in, where, for example, you can have 10,000 different participants. That's what we call decentralized multisigs. And how it works is like this. Basically, imagine you have 10,000 full nodes all securing the spider chain. What you will do is you randomly choose 100 participants out of the 10,000, and they will secure one single multisig. And then you do that again. Then you create a new multisig. Again, you randomly choose 100 participants out of the 10,000, and they will secure a second multisig. And then you do that again. You create a third one. Again, randomly you choose 100 participants out of the 10,000, and they secure multisig 3. And then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7. And you keep doing that. And from a higher level perspective, after a while, you see this whole network of different multisigs, all secured by the 10,000 different nodes. That's a little bit how it works. Now, every node will have to put down a stake and comes together in a proof of stake consensus. And that's how the spider chain works. And this fully runs on Bitcoin. So we're only connected to Bitcoin and nothing else. So all these multisigs live on Bitcoin, and all the participants need to stake Bitcoin. And on the EVM as well, the gas fees are in Bitcoin. So when you do transactions, when you build smart contracts, all of that will be in Bitcoin. That's a little bit how the spider chain works.
Okay, got it. Amazing. So the gas fee is being paid in Bitcoin on this layer too. So calling the spider chain then could be considered all of these components together constitute the spider chain. So the multi-sigs that are living natively on Bitcoin, but then also the EVM, which is operating separately, must be operating in some, with its own mempool and whatever else, right? Like its own characteristics. All of that is considered the spider chain. As far as the gas fees being paid natively in Bitcoin on this EVM, is there a wrapped version of Bitcoin that is being used? What does that token structure look like as far as having Bitcoin be the gas fee on EVM?
Yeah, it's like a sort of wrapped version, but wrapped is the wrong word. When you think about Arbitrum, the Ethereum that is the gas fee on Arbitrum, that is also actually wrapped Ethereum. The actual Ethereum fits in the smart contract on Ethereum blockchain itself. And so it's very similar to how it works on Arbitrum, where the native token of Arbitrum is ETH, but it's actually a wrapped version. And so same for us, Bitcoin on the EVM is the native currency on the EVM, and it basically represents the Bitcoin that is alive on the chain. So on the base chain, the Bitcoin gets locked in this network of decentralized multisigs, and that gets represented on the as the native currency on the EVM.
Got it. So the actual lockup then for any type of a wrapping or bridging, pardon, I'll probably say it poorly, so I'm glad that you're able to correct me as I go. But the wrapping or bridging of the Bitcoin into this new EVM environment and minting of whatever token that would correspond to the value being committed to the EVM, that's all being held in these multi-sigs on Bitcoin L1. So that that's being secure. And you mentioned that the quorum is what, 100 then? For these multisigs?
For a single multisig, it is indeed 100.
Okay, got it. So it is a fairly large quorum that any of these UTXOs are being held in on Bitcoin's L1. Just speaking to the security standpoint, there's at least a lot of keys that go into holding this Bitcoin then.
Well, in essence, the total amount of that can be included in the network can be 10,000 or 100,000. But one single multisig will be 100.
Okay.
For the Bitcoiners listening, actually, when you're talking about the spider chain or want to understand the spider chain, it might help you to actually think about the Lightning Network. In essence, the Lightning Network, if you and I open a channel, that's a 2 out of 2 multisig. And so from a very high level perspective, what the Lightning Network is this network that exists of 2 out of 2 multisigs fully communicating with each other. And that's what we're trying to emulate, but then in a bigger size where every multisig will be a size 100. But you will have, a bunch of different multisigs all communicating to each other.
Amazing. Yeah, no, the orchestration layer between those multisigs, I know is the secret sauce for what you're building, really. Programmatically, you found a way, obviously, but not easy to do. Also, obviously, or somebody would have done it. So that's great. As far as then the collateral held natively on Bitcoin's L1 with these multisigs, massively oversized quorum multisigs, which is great from a security standpoint, especially when you're talking about whatever anyone in the Bitcoin L1 ecosystem staking anything. We're all, I think, rightfully afraid of the $5 wrench attack, which is like the ultimate threat, to model against a proof of stake system or people being key holders as opposed to working. Right in the proof of work paradigm to new issuance anyway. But like that whole concern, right? I think it goes away as you increase that quorum, largely the way that you have. On the EVM side, the token itself, it's being used as gas. You pointed out that on Arbitrum, the ETH that's used as gas on Arbitrum technically is a wrapped Ether. So this wrapped Bitcoin, or whatever this token is that's being used, can you describe that token to the audience a little bit and how that'll be used in the Spider chain and in
Yeah, the best comparison is like Ethereum on Ethereum mainnet. Replace everything there with like Bitcoin. So on the EVM, you basically have Bitcoin, which is the native on the EVM. And from then onwards, you can start using that in any applications you would want that are being built on the EVM. And we actually call that the Botanix EVM, and so, for example, you can now copy paste any smart contract you have on Ethereum or on Arbitrum or anywhere in the EVM world, use that same smart contract code, deploy that on top of us, and now you can use Bitcoin in it. And this is massive. For example, this allows for like stable coins. This allows for like lending or borrowing against your Bitcoin. That's something, for example, that I'm super excited about. You suddenly have a lending and a borrowing protocol like Aave, for example, where you can borrow stable coins against your Bitcoin. Let's say you have a lot of Bitcoin, you don't want to sell it because you want to buy a car. What you do is you borrow stable coins against your Bitcoin. You bring it to the fiat world and you buy a car with it. Like these are examples that suddenly become open, permissionless, open source. Anyone can check the source code and becomes like a trustless version that you can actually start using your Bitcoin in a number of applications.
Amazing. I love that. Let me ask, there'll be some members of the audience who have the initial pushback of saying, well, hey, Willem, I appreciate what you're building. I can get yield with Aave today using WBTC. What would be your response to that person who, that's the rebuttal to you right now?
Yeah, I think that's great. Let me split it up in actually two different sections. Bitcoin on Aave. That's exactly what you could do today. Like exactly as you said, like why don't I sell my Bitcoin, buy Ethereum on a central exchange, then go on Ethereum mainnet, sell Ethereum, buy a wrapped Bitcoin, put that in Aave and then borrow against it, right? Or get that yield on Aave. You introduce a lot of different risks in there. Like you have the wrapped Bitcoin risk. Wrapped Bitcoin is today, I know they have a future plan to decentralize that more into 3 different jurisdictions, but today that is a US company. And so if the US government actually says, look, BitGo, which is the company behind wrapped Bitcoin, we're actually going to seize all your Bitcoin. Then BitGo, as a US company, basically has to follow the rules, and then all the Bitcoin is seized. And we've seen that before in the 1930s, US government seized or banned ownership of gold. And so this is not too crazy to think about. And so even that scenario, what if you are like an outside government? Basically, what if I'm the government in Hong Kong, for example, and I would want to launch a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin, right? Do I use wrapped Bitcoin for it? Because if then the wrapped Bitcoin and Bitcoin is seized, then as a Hong Kong government, like that would look like really, really bad, right? Now, if you can do that on a decentralized layer on Bitcoin itself, where you don't have to go through the hoops of like selling your Bitcoin, buying Ethereum, but basically directly from Bitcoin, the base layer, you bridge to the second layer, and then you can use it directly. And it's a decentralized layer. No one can stop you. That takes away all the different trust assumptions. So that's part 1.
Okay.
Part 2 is like going back to the original reason why you said you do it is for the yield. Now, on a proof of stake like Ethereum, you can stake Ethereum and you get yield on that, right? The yield is somewhere, I don't know, between 3 and 5% or something. And so take that model and take that to where we are. Like you can ask yourself, where does all the gas fees in Bitcoin EVM go to? And it goes to the stakers. And so all those gas fees in Bitcoin basically generate Bitcoin yield. We actually think when we go live, there will be a lot of Bitcoin gas fees on the EVM. And this will be the first time you can actually get yield in Bitcoin. There's very few places that actual Bitcoin yield is generated. One of those places is indeed like Aave, where you can borrow against wrapped Bitcoin. But it's also yield on wrapped Bitcoin. And so here, you will have the Bitcoin gas fees that will actually deliver Bitcoin yield, and you can immediately exit back to Bitcoin on the base layer. So I'm actually besides the stable coins, the borrowing against your Bitcoin, getting Bitcoin yield is something very, very big.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I appreciate you taking that and splitting it up into those different areas. I'm with you. Just so you realize, just so you understand, I wanted to ask a question that I'm sure in the minds of some viewers that they might ask. But I'm with you. The greater the decentralization, the greater the Nakamoto coefficient, the better off we all are, right? For every layer and every interaction and every token involved. I agree. We want to take away as much counterparty risk as humanly possible. Or potential for negative externalities. And especially when it comes to the U.S. government, it is a treacherous time in the United States as we record this. We're weeks away from the U.S. election for the president here, and I think a lot of us building in this space, we feel that more heavily than ever before. We feel that the outcome of an election might decide whether or not some of these counterparty risks are greater than we thought. I love that you're thinking that way. Permissionlessness first. On that note, let's talk a little bit about the architecture of the EVM itself. What current implementation of EVM does it most closely match, or did you fork from? What does that look like?
Good question. We actually use RETH. So RETH is an implementation that is fairly recent. I think they started building that like 3 years ago. It's being built by Paradigm. They have a whole technical team. It's basically the Rust implementation of ETH or the Rust client.
Get your heart out, Solana. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, just had to say that, right? Like, yeah, that's why they did it. You realize they had to have been interruption. They had been giving the middle finger to, I guess, everybody building Solana because everyone just said, "Oh, Rust is superior." No, it's just another language, guys. That's awesome, though. Sorry, please go on.
Yeah, and so basically our whole tech stack as Botanix being is fully in Rust. And so we use the latest version on the EVM. So there is, in essence, no difference between the EVM that we use and the EVM that runs on Ethereum mainnet. So it's exactly the same. And so the interfaces like smart contract, tools, etc., all will run like plug and play. So think about like a lot of infrastructure that is built around EVM, wallets, block explorers, subgraph providers. There's a bunch of different infrastructure there. They will all just plug and play work.
Sure, that makes sense. Let me ask, as far as the user experience, things to just sort of expect with interacting with this EVM. You're saying then it's the implementation is RETH, but it's going to be a similar user experience, block times, throughput, etc. All of that will be very similar to what people are experiencing on ETH today.
Exactly. It's the user experience will be almost copy paste. Like it's actually really weird when you try it out. And actually recommend anyone in the audience to out the testnet. It's very weird because you expect to see Ethereum everywhere, but you're using Bitcoin for everything. But it feels exactly like Ethereum. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I'm wondering then, in terms of so-called innovations, EIPs that surely cannot be implemented. I'm looking at EIP 1559. When you're looking at a fixed supply being ported over from Bitcoin, there's no way you can be involved in burning, right?
Correct. So there's no burning going on. Basically, all gas fees that people pay basically return back to the nodes. So they're burning. It's exactly the amount of Bitcoin that always available in the multisig equals exactly the amount of Bitcoin that exists on the EVM.
Got it. Okay. So that also means, though, that in terms of provenance of Bitcoin that is ported over from the L1 into this EVM, that, as you mentioned, every smart contract that currently runs on ETH today would be totally usable and useful in this ecosystem. It sounds like that includes any ZK Snark enabled libraries or smart contracts where you would have a strong possibility for people to innovate some very interesting privacy technology in this ecosystem. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. I'm based in the United States, so I have to be careful. But it sounds like there's a lot of potential there too.
Yes, no, exactly. Like everything you've seen play out on Ethereum can now start playing out on Bitcoin in all different facets of the industry. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so as far as then performance, there hasn't been any kind of from the community saying, hey, we really like, I don't know, say OP stack or something that's, that would be very to again, the tooling of ETH, but then maybe slightly performant. I mean, what's the feedback you're getting so far in terms of EPS and performance?
Yeah, no, everybody would want to have those Ethereum layer 2 performances, like 0.1 seconds. I think actually the OP stack runs on 2 seconds, which is still like very slow. For a centralized node, I think they should go way faster. I think Arbitrum runs on like 0.25 or 250 milliseconds. And that's where I think they should go to. Like I think centralized roll-ups can go extremely, extremely fast. That is basically their selling point. For us, however, we want to be decentralized. And once you decide you want to be decentralized, you run into bottlenecks. So it will never be as fast as the rollups. And I think that's fine. But what you can start seeing to play out, and I think actually this will happen, is you can take the OP stack or the Arbitrum stack, you can copy paste that and deploy that directly on top of us.
Okay.
And so you have a layer 3. And that's how I think when you think about, it sounds crazy, but try to think 100 years from now, right? And you want to see a whole world that runs on Bitcoin, that uses Bitcoin in every transaction in the world, in insurance contracts, in business contracts, in banking, in stock markets, everywhere, right? I want Bitcoin to be everywhere in the economy. How do you actually get there? And I think Bitcoin on the base layer is absolutely centralized, secure money. Then for DeFi, it makes sense you need a decentralized layer 2 that can run a global financial system, right? And then if you want like specific, very fast, high throughput applications like gaming or NFTs, where it doesn't really matter that the government can basically censor you or shut you down, they wouldn't be interested in that. You basically use extremely fast layer 3s. And so that's how you scale. You go from 10-minute blocks on the base layer to like 5 to 10-second blocks, like in Ethereum, on the second layer to like 0.1 second blocks on a third layer. And that makes so much sense when you think from a very high level perspective in terms of scaling. You want to have that like gradual progression. Like it wouldn't make any sense to go from 10-minute blocks to 0.1. It's too big of a jump. And so having that decentralized layer in the middle, and we will never be as decentralized as Bitcoin, but it's also not needed. For a global DeFi ecosystem, you want to be decentralized, but it's not as crucial as Bitcoin, where it's the global reserve money. Money is way more important. And then on a second layer, financial system, on third layer, like user applications. And that's how we think about actually scaling Bitcoin to all the people in the world, to 8 billion people. I think that's the different layers that I see. And
Amazing.
So you can just take the OP stack, copy paste that today, deploy it on top of us, and you have your 0.1 second block.
Got it. Okay. So then it sounds like then the invitation is to bring in anybody who would build something of a layer 3 then in this ecosystem with Botanix. And the invitation is for them to do that after you've established something of a presence then with between Bitcoin and this new ecosystem. Great. I love it. Let me ask, as far as the current market cap, the current interest, the current like how you're measuring traction and success, what are those early indicators look like to you? What do you view as right now as far as adoption and feedback, and what do you hope to see as you launch?
Yeah, for today, I'm extremely happy actually, and we're already seeing more traction than I could have expected. How that looks like, I think, is testnet. So we see a lot of applications being deployed on the testnet. We see a lot of users. We see a lot of transactions. So that shows there's like user demand for it. And at the same time, we have a lot of partners lined up for day one of mainnet. So infrastructure partners we've talked about, but also think about oracles, some very big players we've been basically partnering with. Hasn't been announced yet, but there's a lot of actually big players in Ethereum that see this interest from the Bitcoin world and basically realize, wait, I am currently kept in my user base in Ethereum, but if I also deploy on Bitcoin, that is a 3 times bigger market cap, they can basically expand their user base, expand their capital base. And so, yeah, we see a lot of good traction, both from like the tier 1 protocols in Ethereum, the tier 2 protocols in Ethereum, but also new types of protocols that are uniquely possible on Bitcoin being built. And so I think this will be extremely, extremely cool to see play out on both from like the people that have Bitcoin and want to do something with it, except for ordinals and wounds. They'll be able to use actually a DeFi ecosystem. And the same thing from Ethereum protocols. And
well, I mean, it seems like there's a strong possibility that if there's going to be a chain that would be likely to create some sort of a runes, ordinals, RGB type wrapping protocol to run on EVM, you seem like a likely candidate now, a likely ecosystem if people were going to experiment that way. It seems like either you guys or ETH, right? Doesn't make any sense any other way.
Yeah.
But, that's super cool.
Exactly.
Can I ask, as far as early interest from builders, protocols that have announced maybe will launch? You mentioned some tier 3, et cetera, which is great that they're leaning in and showing you that that level of commitment to launch. Because seriously, nobody wants to see another go, right. We're day one. It's like, what do we? Cool, it runs. What do we do here now? So that's awesome that you're getting those partnerships lined up. Stable coins, being able to represent stable coins, they've been such a growth sector in crypto over the last couple of years. And again, with the expansion of DeFi, they're supremely important. What do you have in the pipeline so far for stable coins?
Yeah, great question. In stablecoin land, there's a bunch of different solutions. You have the MakerDAO model, which has now been improved by the Liquidity model and the Eklina model, which are more like algorithmic stablecoins. We'll have multiple type of designs of those stablecoins. Like one is almost an exact copy of the Liquidity model that is called Palladium Labs. So Palladium will launch their PUSD, Palladium USD stablecoin, which is a big Bitcoin-backed stablecoin on the EVM. A second type of model is being built by Yala. So Yala actually recently went live on testnet. They will have a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin, but backed with Bitcoin on the base layer. So you'll lock it with Yala on the base layer, and then allows you to mint the stablecoin on the EVM. That basically allows them to deploy their stablecoin on a bunch of different layer 2 EVMs. The third model and stablecoins we will have is basically the stablecoins that are coming over and already existing on Ethereum. So think ETH and Frax, for example. Those are stablecoins that are also deploying. They basically often deploy on multiple EVM chains and layer 2s and others. And then there's more actual fiat-backed coins, but those are still in the works and haven't been announced yet.
Sure. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm one of those weirdos who favors decentralization too much, but I'm not a big fan of the so-called attestation model of say like USDC, Circle, and Tether. I do think that there are some massive counterparty risks there too, inherent in their systems, and even in their smart contract tooling. I think that there are some serious problems with us thinking that those stable coins are safe when they're just as safe as their programming, like any other ecosystem, and just as safe as a custodian, chain of custody or whatever, in their case especially. So yeah, subject to way more fluctuations and problems, I think, than a properly collateralized, over collateralized, like a CDP type or algorithmic type stablecoin. So that's great. In my mind, it's great that you're launching with exactly the partners that you mentioned, with some support there, or at least roadmap support as you're launching, coming into mainnet, knowing that you have those particular projects or projects built on their legacy work involved. It's great. Liquidity has already gone multi-chain, or they've been implemented multi-chain from other EVMs, and they found success in almost every ecosystem that code base has gone to. So won't be shocked to see the Palladium USD do quite well. I think that's going to be something to watch for sure, because I know that there are some additional yield opportunities just backing the Palladium ecosystem. So that's good to be aware of. People who are watching and wondering, hey, maybe I missed out on a potential pre-sale, or I missed out on the earliest public sale, or whenever you're watching this media, if you think you missed out, you didn't. Should things go according to plan, just based on what we've said so far, there will be really strong opportunities for you to contribute on multiple levels, building in, backing up certain token supplies, coming in as a liquidity provider. There's going to be tons to contribute to, but that's good to know. Frax also, huge name. And then, of course, yeah, the other stablecoin protocols that you mentioned, that's super cool. On day one of mainnet, do you know how much stablecoins you'll have at that point, or is it still kind of everyone's racing to get things ready together?
I think we'll have stablecoin support of like between 3 to 6 different providers on day one.
Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, day one, any DeFi protocols that you have running, you can definitely LP between the gas fee token and a stable coin of some type. Something's going to exist then. That's yeah, so something to do. Great. Anything else that I didn't ask that that you think that the audience may be interested to know? Like, well, what didn't I ask that I should have?
Yeah, maybe interoperability with the Lightning Network might be interesting. Because you can, I often ask myself, okay, how this world
Before you start, I'm going to interrupt just really briefly and say I am a little bit a net detractor. I'm a little bit. If you see, the net promoter score, right? All that. I wouldn't be considered a promoter of Lightning Network. I felt like it's been lackluster. And there's quite a bit about the ecosystem surrounding Lightning Network that for me has felt like we're not there. Just so that that's my frame. I think some of my audience feels similarly, but I just wanted to warn you. Kind of bearish on Lightning Network, just a little bit.
No, I agree. I think it's too early. I think Lightning Network will find massive adoption if it eventually becomes a unit of account. If Bitcoin becomes a unit of account, and we're far away from that. First, you have the Bitcoin as a store of value. Then it becomes a medium of exchange. That's what we want to do. 4 years from now, and the next cycle, I want Bitcoin to become a medium of exchange in certain type of economies, and then only eventually you can have Bitcoin as a unit of account. And I think Bitcoin as a unit of account is crucial for the Lightning Network to flourish. However, I think longer term, like think 20 years from now, and you actually want to start paying stuff as a consumer, like in the stores, buying your coffees, etc. You will never do that on an EVM with like high gas fees. And so the Lightning Network has one unique property that nothing else has, is fast free payments. And so how I can see myself as a person living 50 years or 100 years from now is I'll have my big savings in my cold wallet. I'll have a bit of savings where I get yield on, like on my cold wallet on an EVM, right? That's where you can get some yield on. And then I'll have my my checking account. It's like a wallet on the Lightning Network. And I don't think you need to run your own Lightning node. You'll use like a Lightning service provider for it. But that's basically your checking account that you will use for payments in like a coffee shop or wherever. But yeah, today there's no need for it. There's no customer demand for it. And so it's still too early for that. But what I will say is what we've already seen is an EVM Lightning Bridge, where you can basically pay a Lightning invoice directly from your MetaMask. So if you have Bitcoin in your MetaMask on Botanix, you can actually go to any Lightning invoice. And I've tried it out in PubKey in New York, which is a Bitcoin bar. And I've paid a Lightning invoice in PubKey with the Bitcoin in my MetaMask. And so that's starting to get quite cool. So that's something I wanted to share with the audience, detractor or not, but it's cool to see it play out. Probably won't see adoption anytime soon.
Hey, well, you know what though? You'll always have PubKey. That's the thing. I mean, and it's cool if it works in the real world even once. I mean, so like, far be it from me to be discouraging, right, to your development efforts. If you've seen that it worked, and hey, you personally benefited from it, you got to go having a great night out and pay with MetaMask in Bitcoin over Lightning. That's cool. It's I think we're allowed to do rock stuff just because it's useful once. Otherwise, you know what? I don't know. I love the strong focus on decentralization and permissionlessness. I love that there's very clearly an ethos. There's very sort of a moral and ethical compass for this project. So you always have a true north to look back to as far as those measures, right? The Nakamoto coefficient or whatever. You'll always have something objective, but also really, really ideologically pure to come back to as you're building. This is great. This has been a thoroughly enjoyable conversation for me. Any other questions that I didn't ask that your community me up for not asking because I didn't learn enough?
Yeah, like why would you ever use this, and why don't I keep my Bitcoin in cold wallet? And I think the answer to that is very easy. Like everyone whose space was often too late, or they say like, oh, I should have tried it out earlier. I would say like when this goes live, try it out. See what you think. Like, even if it's 1% of your stack or like 5% of your stack, just try it out, play around, see what's possible, and yeah, maybe you'll like it.
Amazing. Okay, well, guys, you heard it right here. I asked for a little bit of information leading up to this. I've got the website, which is in the description. What other socials or community environments, like Telegram or whatever, where's the best place for people to get exposure to Botanix Labs, to this project? If they're building, if they just want to get involved, they want to try it out, where should they go to get more info?
Yeah, we have basically Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. I would say the Discord is actually a really fun community. There's a lot of fun things happening there. So if you are on Discord, like, definitely check it out. We have a bunch of different activities and games, and often like community calls and like AMAs, everything happening there. We invite like partner projects, for example, the Palladium team I mentioned earlier, and a bunch of different others have basically come there and allowed the community to ask questions. But all the official announcements are on Twitter, of course.
Okay, amazing. So all that will be linked down in the description. And I think something that I didn't ask that I really should ask is the funding model for building. I apologize. I skipped over the whole part, like, where you magically developed stuff from thin air. Clearly, it takes time, it takes effort, it can take resources. As far as everything you've been building so far, what does that look like in terms of your team's early burn rate, getting to where you are now? Are you good into the future? Do we need to worry about you guys being homeless in 6 months? What does the funding for your development efforts look like?
Yeah, we raised funding. We raised VC funds. That's actually need. We need to eat ourselves as well. We got good funding, and then once on mainnet, we'll take 20% of all the gas fees in Bitcoin. That's our revenue, which is actually quite unique. Like, even Liquid on Blockstream, they just take all the gas fees or the transaction fees to themselves. That's a little bit the funding model of Blockstream. For us, we will give 80% to the community and the users, and 20% will come to us. That's our revenue.
Amazing. And then validator quorum selection, what does that look like? Is there in terms of being eligible to be a validator, are there any really restrictive requirements that would put your team in the position of being 100% recipients of all the gas fees for some length of time while you're waiting for others to qualify? Because this is something we've seen a lot.
Yeah, I think that is a very important question. Should be asked more, actually. We will start with 15 nodes. So there's a gradual progression in the development. So in the initial days, and that will be there for, I think, at least a year, we will start with 15 nodes, and we will run one. So those 15 parties are actually being selected right now. And we're optimizing first for security and global distribution. These are all established companies that have been around for a while, are very experienced, run a lot of Ethereum nodes. Actually, a lot of them. So I
can't just go spin something up on Hetzner in the next 15 minutes and qualify? That won't be good enough? I have to actually be good at this?
Unfortunately not. Exactly. Okay. So we look at like uptime, security assessments, etc. We have like a lot of different assessments. I think we have 40 to 50 operators in the running right now, out of which we will select 14 others. We will make these publicly available, so anyone will see who actually is the 15 that on day one runs this network. And we will run one, so that basically immediately puts us no longer in control of the network, which is both a good thing and, of course, like security-wise, you just have to trust the quorum.
Nice, that's amazing. Yeah, that's it's very ballsy. I don't know how many groups have put themselves in a position where they can't control the validator network either through hardware or through stake weighting across the validator quorum. Yeah,
no one has that. Well, layer ones have that, but like of the layer twos, no one has that. Like, this is a very interesting new model that no one has done. All the gas fees and revenues of any layer two you have today all go to a central company. It's a great business model. And so what we're doing from a business side is actually not the best idea, but we do believe that decentralization will bring more activity. And so we are doing that from day one, basically splitting out the control over 15 different parties. But it's not your standard model, correct?
Okay, amazing. And then the steering committee that is selecting those additional 14 validators, that is kind of the core team steering that a bit, just to make sure that you have validators in place.
Yeah, correct. So today we built out a matrix that says each parties of different aspects of their tech stack, security assessments, etc.
Okay, cool. And then will validator selection become a an increasingly deep aspect of operating Botanix and the spider chain? And if so, what does that look like today with your team's plan to further decentralize it?
Yeah. So what happens after the 15? So the beginning is a fixed federation, and then you go to something what we call a dynamic federation, where you can start adding members. And so you can start adding members and go from like 15 to like 20 to like 50 to like 100. And probably at 100, that's where we will max out for quite a bit. So you can see this is a multi-year development. But yeah, adding those members, especially in the initial phases, quorum will have to accept those. So once the first 15 are into place, they will have to vote for additional members to join the federation. We actually think a lot of those operators will be bigger companies that run a lot of nodes on Ethereum or Solana today, very specialized professional companies.
Okay, man, that's going to be tough though, because at the same time, they will be voting to decrease their own rewards, right? So that's a difficult decision to put anybody in. It's a very difficult transition to ask anyone to be in charge of. Hiring your own replacement, diluting your own payouts. You can say it in a lot of ways, but human behavior is such that usually people do not act against their own self-interest. So that's going to be a unique challenge. I wish you luck there.
Well, I actually think that they will make the right decision in the end. Everything is publicly visible, so all those 15, they will of course on the chain follow the consensus rules and have to vote no changes in. If they would vote against that, you're basically telling the world, look, I am company A, and I basically voted against progress of the network. I do not want to further decentralize. I think the public and the users will not like that. So there's a little bit of a reputation risk if that would happen.
Sure, it's just, and I mean, you've been around blockchain long enough. You've seen the different development cycles. You've seen the cultural cycles that where like literally certain groups have popped up with a cult following, and you're like, that makes no rational sense. Why are we organizing in this way, even though the behavior of other groups that they splintered from was in the public? And I don't know. There's been very weird rifts in just Bitcoin development alone. If you just look at Bitcoin L1 development, not even outside of Bitcoin development, just really weird factions and splinter groups and stuff. So that's the reason I ask about that early on. Contentious hard forks have been created over less than they're about to face with this vote, right? So again, you have my best wishes for a smooth transition there whenever that happens, because yeah, I can see with the human element there, I can see that being maybe a sticking point. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully, I'm wrong.
Let's see it play out.
Yeah, amazing. Anything else that that the Botanix ecosystem is looking for right now? You mentioned early users, people who are curious about participating from that level. On the building side, are you looking for additional development talent on the core project in the ecosystem? Where are some gaps that if somebody who's more technical watching could help fill?
No, absolutely. I think if you're more technical and you are very familiar with Solidity or any sort of applications, feel free to reach out, and we can definitely help you out. There's a lot of ideas within our team, and there's a lot of that needs to be built. So we're definitely always looking for that. Also internally for the team, if you really like this and what we're doing, and typically we are looking for people that fully believe in our vision and believe in our ethos, then yeah, definitely reach out. And you can always reach us through the socials.
Amazing. Well, Willem, again, thank you so much for your time, and appreciate you. Audience, I will see you guys in a minute. Hey, I told you I would check in with you, right? What do you think? Let me know down in the comment section down below. I thought it was super cool. I discovered so much cool stuff. I'm going to be looking at the testnet right now and adding it to MetaMask so I can kind of mess around. I asked some really in-depth questions about building on this new network. Surely you have some questions for Willem. Surely you have some feedback for me. Let me know down in the comment, guys. You're the reason to make this media. I love your face. Remember to stay private and mind your gosh darn business. I'll see you in the next one.